because this means somebody's going to be watching this and they're like, well, I knew rehab was a bad idea. I can't do it.
Yep. See, honey, I shouldn't have to go because it's all a racket. Look at what John Oliver said. And unfortunately, he mischaracterizes it, right? Because like any industry in America, this is the bad part of it. But that's like less than 5% of providers because they're committing felonies. Most people that I know that work in healthcare did not do their entire career, go to school for all those years, pay all those dues, get these medical licenses so they could throw them all away on common felonious bribery charges. Like, that's not going to work. And we know it's fraud. Like, I've never met a professional who ever did anything like this, but I've heard stories about them, on the news. Right. And it taints the industry, man. It gives us all a bad name. But, most of us are out there doing the right thing. Yeah, it definitely does. And it can be difficult to find a rehab. To find a good one. And there's, like I said before, there's really good treatment centers. There's really bad ones. And it's not as simple as just looking at, well, let's look at their daily schedule. What's that look like? Right. Because you could be doing the exact same groups. Right. You can be doing everything exactly the same, but it's just kind of the agency's overall philosophy that might be different, completely sets a different tone. Could be the individual therapists themselves. Right. There are some therapists that can use CBT and are great at it, and other therapists that are just not as good. And it's hard to know that from the outside looking in. Exactly. It's very difficult.
So this is a matter of life and death. And if you're wondering what experts would advise you to do in seeking treatment, many that we spoke to suggested beginning not with a rehab, which may try and sell you on its own services, but with a doctor who is board certified in addiction medicine. Now, it's only recently become an official specialty, so there just aren't many of them around, but you can find those that do exist at this website here. They may be able to guide you toward a treatment that best suits your needs, which might well not be a fancy centre where you have to pay $73,000 to have this guy lose you. Look, this system clearly badly needs more expertise and oversight. And until then, it may be really important for all of us to understand that at present, the word rehab is so broadly defined as to be close to meaningless. It is honestly barely better defined than the word building. And if someone were to tell you, I have a drug problem, but don't worry, I'm going to building in Florida, you would naturally say, hold on, what building? Where did you find this building? What's happening inside it? Is it a hospital or a Hooters? Or both? Is it a hootspital? What's the proof that it works, and what's the doctor-to-horse ratio like in there? And sadly, right now, it can be way too difficult to get answers to those questions, which is crazy because so much about battling addiction is really hard. Getting clean is hard. Staying clean is hard. But getting good, evidence-based, trustworthy help should be the fucking easy part. And right now, it is way too easy to literally wind up pissing money up a fucking wall.
Gosh. So he nails it on this. And, a couple of thoughts. If you are looking to go to a rehab or you're worried about somebody and you want to look at this, I do believe that you should be free to go online. And I encourage that because I think that that's where people can portray themselves. They can show you what they do. But watch out for gimmicks, right? Because, if you're shopping for healthcare, the number one thing you should be looking for is competence. If you were looking for a diabetes doctor, a cancer doctor, a heart surgeon, shop the same way for rehab as you would for those, which is analyze the people that are at that company, analyze the people that are doing the service. Do they have licenses? Do they have high standards like a JCO, something that is an outside agency to prove to you that it's very high quality? And, be prepared to look into it. Do your homework. But also, any treatment is probably better than no treatment at all. And so I don't want to see people stall waiting for the perfect thing to come along as an excuse to continue in their addiction. Right. And we, as Jim said earlier, we kind of have the luxury treatment. Right. That's kind of our model that we're using. But we've both worked in state-run programs. Oh, yeah. And we've seen people get sober there and get clean and are still clean today. There's multiple ways that this can be done. There are really good treatment programs that, that have that luxury aspect to it. And there are some that don't, but you can get clean either way. There's good quality in both ends of that. Yeah, I agree. And in the clip, he made a recommendation. He said, go to an addiction certified physician, right?
Right.
And that should be your director. That should be your navigator. That's always hard for me.
I was kind of looking at that too, because so I checked out the link.
Yeah.
And you put in your state, and so I put in Las Vegas, Nevada, which I think there's only 6 or 7.
Yeah, it's so rare.
Yeah, one of them happens to be our medical.
Yeah,
director,
I figured he was
cool.
in there. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I also kind of wonder, like, hopefully they have the resources.
Right.
Because, if like I'm pretty in tune as far as Las Vegas. I mean, it's as far as the recovery community in Las Vegas, it's pretty small. We all know each other. I haven't had to apply for a job in like 7 years.
Right.
Because people come to me because they know.
Small
right.
town.
I mean, we just, we go to the people that we know first. Right.
Right.
If I know somebody in Las Vegas that needs treatment, I've got a few options. I can hook them up pretty easily. But if I got somebody calling me and saying, well, I want to go to treatment, but I'm looking for a place in Chicago.
Right.
I'm going to be doing the same thing they're going to be doing.
I'm going to Google it. I'm Googling it.
It's tough.
Well, I would add this. I mean, another resource is SAMHSA, right, Nick? You can go to SAMHSA, and they have a treatment provider database where you can type in a city and state, and they'll tell you every provider in that area and all the levels of care, right?
Yes, SAMHSA.
Yeah, we pronounce it SAMHSA.
Yeah.
But that's a federal entity which actually oversees a lot of rehabs and does a lot of good research and studies. So that's a really good resource if you're trying to find a place.
SAMHSA.gov, I believe.
I think SAMHSA.gov. And, another thought too, I think that there's some wisdom to going to the physician who specializes in addiction medicine. I also get frustrated with it because by definition, they did most of their medical training in physical health, and then they learned how to detox people, and that's their addiction medicine training. That's not psychotherapy. That's not psychology. That's not behavioral health. They are not trained in that entire form of medicine. And so I've always found them lacking because their usual first answer is, oh, let me get you some medicine. Let me get you some naltrexone. If you can stay sober for 14 days, I'll get you some naltrexone, which they're not capable of staying sober for 14 days. And so a lot of times my personal best fit is to look up in your area addiction counselors, look up substance abuse therapists, addiction counselors. Every state has some kind of profession that's doing that. They're usually licensed. And call some of those guys because that's the profession that we come from. Those are really your best bet. They may work at a rehab, but if you're able to find them online, they're probably in independent practices, and they will direct you and show you where to go. And they are professionals. They've earned their licenses. They are competent, and they can probably do, Nick, like a pre-assessment to get a feel for some of the unique contours. Because you think about how many people are a good fit for every rehab. Mm-hmm. Usually there's a lot of interesting case notes that just are important to take away, and a physician isn't always interested in that. So I tend to break toward therapists. Yeah,
I hadn't thought about that until you said that, but yeah, I think most of the therapists that I know that are in private practice they seem to have a good sense of, good treatment programs in the area. I would trust their opinion.
I agree. That's the best way to go. But if you are out there or somebody you care about is struggling with this disease, enjoy the clips, laugh along with John Oliver. The professional community will take care of the housekeeping. Okay, that's our job. Our job is to fix it. Your job is to get help any way that you can.
And John, I know you're listening because you're one of our regular listeners.
John Oliver?
Yeah.
Yeah, he calls me all the time. It's getting ridiculous.
Yeah, so just want to let you know that
I'm not available for lunch, John.
I did enjoy the segment. It was really good. It was really funny. And he spoke to a lot of things that frustrated me as well.
Yes.
I think my biggest issue with it is I don't want people walking away thinking like this is the whole game.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to come behind Nick on that one too. Nick, you didn't know this. I literally quoted John Oliver in my doctoral dissertation. He did an entire piece on mental health and like how necessary it was to reform it in America. And he quoted all these great statistics, and his comedy routine is able to take really complex things and make them really, really simple and understandable. And I stole like crazy from that episode because he specifically mentioned Nevada and he mentioned Greyhound therapy. And part of my dissertation was on the Nevada reforms that we needed to have here. I quoted John Oliver, which tells you a lot about how worthless my doctorate is, but also how much I really respect John Oliver.
So thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
For Jim's doctorate.
Yes. I'll send you my student loan bills.
That's all the time we've got for this week's session. Thank you to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Help us reach others by sharing this episode. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/podtherapy or on Twitter at podtherapyguys.
Do you want to add your own advice to today's questions? Come on over to podtherapy.net and join the revolution.
Oh, I'm Laura Cordova.
That's Laura. And I'm Nick. Thanks, everybody, for listening. That was terrible.
Yeah, that was.
That's a wrap.
No more bonuses for us.